Thank you for coming to this exploration number 5. This is Kusujiro Miyoshi. Today, I will talk about Edward Phipps's New World of English Words 1658 under the title The First Systematic Treatment of English Vocabulary, Phipps's New World of English Words, which is based on the presentation at the International Conference, as you see. Section 1, Introduction. An English General Dictionary in the middle of the 17th century, Edward Phipps's New World of English Words, 1658, had often met with severe criticism, being regarded as hardly innovative in any of its aspects. For instance, the Witt, Starnes, and Gertrude Noyes was remarked as shown at number 1. In another respect, it had long been acknowledged among authorities that Phillips, for the compilation of his New World, especially depended on Thomas Blount's Glossographia, 1656, among other dictionaries. Concerning the point, Noel Osserton and Starnes and Noyes remarked as seen at number 2. In this situation, Phillips applied Blount's lexicographical technique in a creative way, thus the New World reflecting Phillips's unique treatment of the language, which is essentially different from Blount's. To be concrete, Phillips, for instance, provided 508 entries whose headwords begin with the letter L, compared with Blount's 375. However, this does not mean that Phillips copied the headword of the 379 entries. Far from it, he only used 147 of them, representing no more than 38.8%. In addition, he newly added 361 entries on words whose headwords are not seen in Blount's Glossographia. And when the 147 headwords are collated with the 361, the facts become revealed that Phillips often amalgamated 2 or more entries in the Glossographia into a single entry, providing headwords of his own choice, and that he frequently replaced Blount's headword with others, changing and deleting suffixes and accordingly altering their relevant definition. If we can find certain types of tendencies in this practice of Phillips's, we will see his unique treatment of the language there. And in this presentation, it will be clarified that Phillips's changes to Blount's headword are not simply fine-tuning, but on the contrary, sprang from the fact that his approach to the vocabulary of English is different in principle from Blount's. With regard to the order of analysis, I will firstly describe the tendencies in Phillips's practice when he amalgamated Blount's entries, and secondly examine whether the same tendencies are also observed in his practice of replacing headwords to make sure that they are not chance happening. In performing these tasks, I will adopt a sampling method dealing with relevant entries on words for the letter L in Glossographia and the New World of which I have referred to. At the last of this introductory section, I need to make some remarks about 2 procedures to be adopted in my analysis. The one concerns Blount's and Phillips's treatment of etymon of headword. In most entries of the Glossographia, precisely in 371 entries out of the 379 in its L. Blount indicated the Edmund of headword in parentheses. As for Phillips, he rarely followed such practice. He merely indicated from which language he thought each headword was derived, using abbreviation. This difference between the two dictionaries is easily detected by browsing through them. However, I will also argue this point, examining how Phillips performed this in respective cases, counting disregard of the Edmund of headword as being based on his lexicographical principle. Another procedure in this presentation concerns the indication of the word class. The lexicographers in the 17th century, neither Blount nor Phillips, indicated the word class in their dictionaries. However, I, for the convenience of my analysis, will occasionally indicate it using abbreviations such as N, standing for the noun, ADJ, the adjective, and V, the verb. Sorry. Section 2. Amalgamating Blount's entries. Within the range of the L's in the New World, we can find 36 cases where Phillips amalgamated more than one entry in Blount's Glossographia into a single entry. From Phillips's viewpoint, this practice concerned the sets of entries in the Glossographia which were comprised of 76 entries in all, which I indicate at number 3. Phillips, in his New World, amalgamated the contents of the respective sets in the entries shown at number 4, thus decreasing the number of relevant entries from 76 to 36. In terms of the topic of my analysis, we can discern three grammatical aspects in Phillips's practice of amalgamating entries in the Glossographia. They are 1. Disregarding the Edmonds of headword, especially of their derivative suffixes. 2. Emphasizing the root form of English words in choosing headwords. And 3. Prioritizing the noun over adjectives and verbs also in the choice of headwords. I will deal with these three aspects in this order, citing concrete examples showing the situation for each. 1. Disregarding the Edmonds of headwords. This aspect is seen, for instance, in the case where Phillips amalgamated the contents of the three entries in the Glossographia: liquidation, liquefaction, and liquid in the entry on the equation or liquefaction of his New World. As for Blount, when the three entries in the Glossographia are compared with each other, he is regarded as having provided two of them, the entries of liquefaction and liquefaction, to indicate the derivative suffixes of the relevant Latin Edmonds in the parentheses next to the headwords as indicated at number 5. Such consideration of Blount was totally disregarded by Phillips. Phillips, as shown at number 6, deleting the Latin Edmond of the headwords liquefaction and liquefaction, which Blount had indicated, only treating the two English words as synonyms of each other in one entry, incorporating the contents of the entry on liquid, the third of the three entries. If I cite one more example, Phillips, in the entry on logician in his New World, amalgamated two entries in the Glossographia, disregarding the derivative suffixes of the relevant two Edmonds as seen at number 7. The fact that Phillips cared little about the derivative suffixes of the Edmonds of English words is also reflected in 31 other cases out of the 36 where he amalgamated more than one entry in the Glossographia. Specifically, this situation is seen in the entries in the New World, which are indicated at number 8. 2. Emphasizing the root form of English words. In this manner, Phillips is thought to have paid little attention to the Edmonds from which English words are derived. Meanwhile, as to English words which he provided as headwords, he can be regarded as having attached importance to their root forms. For instance, when Phillips amalgamated the entries on Lombardier and Lombard in the Glossographia, he performed this in the entry on Lombard or Lombard, as shown at number 9. It is noteworthy in this case that Phillips's definition in the entry is more based on the contents of the entry on Lombardier, whose headword he disregarded, than that of the entry on Lombard in the Glossographia. Here we may see the possibility of Phillips's preference to choose root forms rather than derivatives in providing headwords. To cite another example, in amalgamating the entries on lapidity and lapid provided in the Glossographia, Phillips chose the headword of the latter, the root form, as shown at number 10. Phillips performed this practice in 8 cases out of the 36 on my current scope of analysis in this section. As to other 6 cases, apart from 2 which I already referred to, the traces of such practice of Phillips's are seen in the entries indicated at number 11. 3. Prioritizing non-headwords. However, Phillips did not consistently give preference to root forms in choosing headwords. Performing such practice, wholly disregarding the derivative, will not be possible for any lexicographer of the General English Dictionary. Still, in both cases, where the headword is the root form and where it is the derivative, we may discern a unique tendency in Phillips's practice in providing entries in the New World. Concerning this point, when he chose headwords in amalgamating entries in the Glossographia, Phillips is regarded as having given priority more to the adjective than to the verb, and more to the noun than to the adjective, thus attaching special importance to the noun. This fact can be observed in 2 types of cases in Phillips's choice of headword. The one is his use of headword in the Glossographia, and the other his provision of new headwords, each of which I will investigate in the following. As to the former case, in amalgamating entries in the Glossographia, he preferred to use noun headwords which had been provided by Blount, as shown at number 12. In this set of examples, it will be clear that Phillips consciously chose the noun headword lucrancy in order to amalgamate the 2 entries in the entry whose headword is lucrancy. He nominalized the phrase full of light and the word clear into fullness of light and clearness respectively. Among the 36 cases of Phillips's amalgamation of entries, we can find 14 others which reflect this practice of Phillips's, the traces of which can be seen in the entries which I show at number 13. As to the point of Phillips's choice of the adjective as the head word, it concerns his provision of these 13 entries which is indicated at number 14. And we cannot find a single instance among the 36 which indicates his having chosen the verb head word in the Glossographia. With regard to the latter, the case where Phillips provided new head word in performing the amalgamation of entries, he chose 6 new words to be used for head word, out of which 1 is an adjective and 5 are nouns, which are shown at number 15. In conjugation with this, the fact will be noteworthy that within the scope of my current analysis, Phillips did not provide a single entry whose head word is the verb. We may note here that Phillips disregarded the following 44 head words in the Glossographia, 5 of which are verbs, in his performances of amalgamating entries as shown at number 16. Section 3. Replacing Blount's entries. Within the range of the L's in his New World, Phillips made replacement of 18 entries in Blount's Glossographia. Replacement here means mainly conversion on the word class or that of the suffix of the head word and modification of the definition which accompanied the conversion. On this premise, Phillips did not incorporate the entries in the Glossographia indicated at number 17 into his New World as they are. Instead, he provided the new one shown at number 18. With the collection of the two sets of entries here, I will, in the following, examine whether the tendencies in Phillips's practice in amalgamating Blount's entries are also seen in his practice of replacing entries. If I may suggest the conclusion of this examination in advance, it will prove the fact that Phillips's attachment to the root and noun forms of English words is not merely for the convenience of amalgamating entries in Blount's Glossographia. 1. Examining his disregard of the etymology of head words, the two sets of entries I indicate at numbers 17 and 18 show that Phillips hardly intended to treat the etymology of head word. One example which showed this tendency is the replacement seen at number 19. In this example, Phillips's head word, lavated, is regarded as an adjective as well as Blount's level, but it will be clear here that Phillips was conscious of the conjugation of the English word rather than its etymology, even making his indication LAT lacked trivial supplementary information for him. Other entries in the New World where we can detect Phillips's disregard of the etymology of head word are as indicated at number 20. 2. Examining his emphasis on the root forms of an English word. The two sets of entries at the beginning of this section can also be regarded as verifying Phillips's awareness of the root form of English words. To cite one instance which seemed to reflect this awareness, he replaced Blount's entry on lemonium with lemnos, altering the definition as shown at number 21. In this way, Phillips replaced 6 other entries in the else of Blount Glossographia, changing the headword from the derivative to the root form as shown at number 22. Okay. 3. Examining his prioritizing noun headwords. Within the scope of my current analysis, Phillips nominalized 8 adjective headwords and 1 verb headword in the Glossographia as indicated at number 23. Some of the replaced headwords are root formed, which I have already examined, but at the same time, they also include such derivatives as liquidation and location, the word with the suffix tion shown, which transform the verb into the noun. In providing these 2 headwords, he altered the definitions in the relevant entries in the Glossographia as shown at number 24. Viewed from another angle, Phillips changed the 6 nominal headwords in the Glossographia and provided 1 noun headword anew within the current scope, as I show at number 25. Okay. This fact will be regarded as further evidence of Phillips's interest in noun headwords. Here again, he was conscious of the suffix which form the noun. The cases I cite at number 26 are the ones where he provided the headword liberation instead of the libertine and the libation or libament instead of the libament. As to the former, it may be regarded as resulting from the mixture of Phillips's interest in the root form and that in the formation of the noun. I have now analyzed Phillips's practice of replacing entries, aiming to confirm whether the 3 tendencies in his practice of amalgamating Blount's entries are also seen there. Through this analysis, we may safely say now that he was consistently, though not always, indifferent to the etymology of English words and instead conscious of the root and noun forms of the word throughout the task of compiling his new world. Section 4, Conclusion. Until today, Phillips's new world had usually been recognized as largely based on Blount's Glossographia, a type of etymological dictionary. Actually, however, Phillips almost totally disregarded the etymology of English words to which Blount attached special importance, signifying the fact that the New World, a general English dictionary, is a different type of dictionary from the Glossographia. We may also conclude now that in the New World, the indication of the language from which the headword is derived is no more than supplementary information, not being essential. In addition to this point, Phillips was also quite different from Blount in paying close attention to root and noun forms of English words. Actually, Phillips is judged to be exceptional in performing this practice at a time when other lexicographers of the English General Dictionary hardly thought of discriminating the root word from the derivative, usually focusing their attention on the treatment of words of foreign origin. Then, when we examine Phillips's creative use of the Glossographia from a grammatical viewpoint, the fact becomes revealed that he frequently performed unique lexical treatment of the English word in his New World. It may safely be said that this fact showed the power of Phillips' lexicographical thought. That is, Blount still saw naturalized foreign words as the primary object of lexicography, and Phillips was coming to realize that what matters is the systematic treatment of the vocabulary of English, whatever its origin. Actually, Phillips performed such practice nearly 1 century before Samuel Johnson emphasized the importance of reference to the root word in the treatment of the English derivative, reflecting on the compilation process of the Dictionary of the English Language, 1755, as quoted at number 27. We will now not be able to consent Starnes and Noyes' opinion, which I cited at the beginning of this paper, that Phillips put to work very few original ideas and that he only gave emphasis to some already current. Besides, it will be against the fact to regard Phillips as having been preoccupied with rehashing Blount's Glossographia with the acceptance of Osterton's opinion, which I also mentioned. Instead, we may now have to reconstruct the beginning of the systematic grammatical treatment of the language in the history of English lexicography through Phillips's New World of English Words. This is the bibliography of my presentation. Thank you for joining me for this exploration. If you find the topic this time interesting, it is expanded in detail in my paper, as you see.